Hello and welcome. Today we're looking at all of the 5 plans of the praetors. And I think this is an interesting thing to look at because it tells us a lot about these praetors, of which we have a whole series on them as well. And then also their plans. So this cycle is very flavorful and I think it will be a good one to look at. I know it will be. So first of all, we have Alice Norn, where Magali Villeneuve, of course, always the perfect artist to ask if you want the thighs. And she did deliver here. If you want me to say sorry for beginning with thighs or mommy or something like that, again, no. All of the praetors, by the way, have like a sort of almost evergreen keyword. Oh, Vorinclex even has 2, Trample and Reach. But some have their old ones, like Alice Norn, who has Vigilance again. Then, whenever a source an opponent controls deals damage to you, they lose 2 life unless they pay 1. So sort of defending you, sort of a prison type card. And that is an interesting point, I feel, because this is protection, and Alice Norn has been building her empire by protecting hers, while all the other praetors were attacking each other and weakening each other. Then all the praetors have an ability where for a bunch of mana and another cost or another requirement, you exile them to start their plans. So they sort of have to sacrifice themselves and their building up of their empire, like Alice Norn, who can't be protecting her empire anymore when she is building her own plan. So you sacrifice 3 other creatures. Alice Norn's empire is all about self-sacrifice for the greater good and eventually for Alice Norn herself in order to start the Argent Etchings. And her empire is built upon, as I said, the sacrifice of her people, as you can see from the fact that she has made her throne out of actual people. These are actually, what did they call it? Ossificated people. Then you incubate 2 5 times. So you create 5 artifacts that you can sort of morph for 2 of any mana to create 2/2s. So you sacrifice 3 creatures to make eventually 5 creatures. Then the second part, which might be hard to get to, but you could at your upkeep while this is on the stack, make those 5 incubator tokens into 2/2s, and then all your creatures get +1/+1 and double strike until end of turn. That means with your tokens, which are now 3 3s, so 15, that you can deal 30 damage to your opponents if they get through, of course. But double strike, of course, helps them get in favorably and stuff like that. So that makes your 2/2s very significant. And then destroy all other permanents except for artifacts, Phyrexians, and lands. And the artifacts and Phyrexians are all your incubators as well. So in those kinds of incubator decks, they work very well. This works very well, but also just together with the 10/10 amount of power you have in just the incubators themselves, this is insane. And then, of course, when your plan succeeds, the praetors don't die. So they return as your praetors with their ability. And then you can sacrifice 3 creatures again, maybe some of your Phyrexian tokens, and start the plan all over again. So what does this tell us about Alice Norn? She builds her empire by protecting her people, by protecting her empire and herself. And she has the Argent Etchings, which are sort of the scriptures that she wants her people to follow, that she wrote herself actually. Which is pretty funny, but she wrote it because she thought she heard it from the previous Phyrexians, old Phyrexia. But we don't really know how much of it is truly from old Phyrexia and how much she has made up. This is her plan, which is to make a lot of Phyrexians, apparently from the lore, make them strong, and then destroy everything except the Phyrexians. I guess that is the plan of conquering all the worlds. But there are better ones with even more flavor if we look at Jin Cataxius. So his keyword is ward, which is starting to get evergreen now. I think it even has been said that it is now. Whenever you cast a non-creature, so this one is about non-creature spells, with mana value 3 or greater, you draw a card. That is already powerful, but Jin costs 5 mana, so that is significant. And then you have to play 4 more mana, which is 9 in total, to exile Jin. And you also need to have 7 or more cards in your hand, which might be hard at that time, part of the game. So you might need to draw a lot of cards, or only have non-creature spells which sort of cycle now in your deck, of course. The Great Synthesis, so this is Jin Cataxius' plan, which is all about making the perfect creature, keep working on it, keep revising, keep throwing away what you don't need. The first ability says draw cards equal to the number of cards, so everything that you've studied until now, you sort of double that knowledge that you have. You have no maximum hand size for as long as you control the Great Synthesis. So you can go very far in how many cards and spells you have in hand. Then you return all non-Phyrexian creatures to their owner's hands. If you have a lot of them, then you can attack in freely, but otherwise this is pretty good as well, because you might not want too many tools on your opponent's side when you go to number 3, which is you may cast any number of spells from your hand without paying their mana costs. So you can play a lot of spells, because remember, you probably have like maybe 20 at this point with the kind of deck that you are playing, but probably like 14, 15, 16 is pretty reasonable here. So you will cast a lot of spells for free at that moment, and then Jin Cataxius returns to again give you more card draw, and probably you should have won the game at this point. The flavor here being, I guess, that he has been planning for his successful spells to enter the battlefield, and now he immediately puts them out of their pots. Something like that. Shieldred. When Shieldred enters, each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature or planeswalker. For 5 mana, that's not too good, honestly. It feels like. Maybe, like, again, there are too many of these, but with a blink sort of thing. But I think that's not really what this card is about. What I do think is really beautiful is this piece of art. So we sort of see an arm here, you can see, and then we see Shieldred as a parasite coming out of its skin, sort of. I don't know if this is a statue or an actual being, but we can see Shieldred and her long tail. I don't know for how long it goes on here, but protruding from this piece of skin. I think that is the best piece of this card, and that makes everything right again. Plus we see her army here. I think I've never seen these kinds of guys before, so that is interesting as well to me. But this piece of protruding, that's the best part, I think. But when your opponent has 8 or more cards in the graveyard, you may exile Shieldred for 5 more, so 10 in total. Then for each opponent, destroy up to 1 target creature or planeswalker that player controls. That's already way better, so you can choose any creature from them or planeswalker from every one of your opponents. That is very strong. Then each opponent discards 3 cards, then mills 3 cards, so you put 6 more cards into their graveyards. Potentially. Then it's not, so you choose from all of your opponents 1 creature or planeswalker, then they discard 3 cards. Can't be the case that they have a lot of great cards left, I feel like, but well, they are probably good, but they don't have a lot of cards, I feel, at this moment. And then you put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. So yours, but also those 7 cards per opponents that you perhaps have put into the graveyard will come onto the battlefield under your control. This is an ambitious plan, but I think that is perfect for Shieldred as well. One thing I love about this, by the way, is the fact that because these cards have a backside, they don't have to give the legendary creatures a title. So the front part is just called Shieldred, Jin Cataxius, Elish Nor, and I think that is that just looks nice to me. But this plan, it's ambitious. And their plan is, I feel like, to sort of overthrow the scriptures that Elisnor made and make her own. She's sort of the same. I feel like these two colors and these two philosophies are the same part, the other side of the same coin. Elisnor just says that you should do this for the greater good, and Childred is open about everything being for her. But Elisnor, in the end, also revealed that everything was for herself as well. Childred is just more open about it. I think that is a beautiful piece of nuance. Now for Urabrask, we don't have the high definition parts of his art yet, but this one with the slashing is, I think, very beautiful. So we can look at this, even though it shines a bit brightly. I concur. So 4 mana 4/4 with First Strike. Of course, all these creatures all have a very great stat line, like a 5 mana 5/5 with a bit of protection is already good. A 5 mana 4/5 with some evasion is already good. 4 mana 4/4 with First Strike, very strong defender and attacker. Then whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Urabrask deals 1 damage to target opponent. And I feel like very important, you add a red mana. Well, not even I feel like, but there are cards that make a mana every time you cast an instant or sorcery spell that help you go infinite. Urabrask will do the same. And together with those other cards, that is a lot of cost reduction on a card. And the fact that this is a colored mana as well, very strong. I feel like this will be broken in some way. And then I feel like even almost unnecessary to make this card strong is the fact that you can also start his plan. Where his plan isn't really a plan, it's more like a process. But you do need to have cast 3 or more instants and sorcery spells this turn, but then his process starts. The Great Work, it deals 3 damage to target opponent at each creature they control. So you sort of start with a board wipe here. A lot of these have a board wipe or take immense value from your opponents. I feel like that is beautiful, because that is indeed what the fractions do. They start with some aggression, but then from that debris they start to work, they start to make things, and they make 3 treasures. And then until end of turn you may cast instant and sorcery spells, of which you have at least 3 in the graveyard, from any graveyard, so also your opponents. And when you cast them, you exile them. So you also exile cards from your opponent's graveyards if you cast those spells. But you probably have some great ones in your own, because you will be an instant and sorcery spell deck. One thing I like here is that the end part of the Great Work synergizes very well with Urabrask himself. If you have been going off with those extra pieces of mana that you got from Urabrask, and now you have a lot of small spells in your graveyard, when the Great Work triggers, you get back the Urabrask part, and you can start cycling and blasting off again. I think that is beautiful, because Urabrask is working with his people. He does what he wants. He wants to be there when you finish the Great Work, I feel like. But it is never finished. The Great Work will always go on. Then, lastly, we have Vorinclex, a 5 mana 6/6. That is already very much more than enough, I'd say. But there's more. He has trample and reach as well. So he already is a great creature. When he ends the battlefield though, you search your library for up to 2 forest cards as well, and you put them into your hand though, so it's not rammed. I feel like that is fair. Then for 8 mana, which you will get to pretty easily because you have already probably like 5 mana, and then you have 2 more, so that's 7. You just need 1 more somewhere. You probably have those lands somewhere in this deck. You exile Vorinclex and return it. No extra requirements because it's 8 mana probably. And then you start the Grand Evolution. Vorinclex, just like I guess Urabrask, doesn't really have a plan, it's more like a process. You mill 10 cards, put up to 2 creature cards from among the milled cards onto the battlefield. So from the top 10 cards of your library, you put 2 creature cards from among them onto the battlefield without casting, without paying mana. So that is very strong, because probably in this deck you will have some great cards, creature cards to put onto the battlefield for free. Any Eldrazi you can do it. Then the second one distributes 7+1 counts among any number of target creatures you control. I feel like that is underwhelming. It sounds like a lot. This is powerful, of course, because even a 1/1 becomes an 8/8. And you can distribute them, so you can share them around, so you can be smart about it. But that doesn't finish the game yet, I feel. But still, 7 extra damage, not bad. Then the last one is a sort of board wipe here as well, I guess. Until end of turn, creatures you control, which are now very big, gain for 1 mana, you can let them fight other creatures. So that's a great board wipe here, and then you return to Vorinclex. Of course, telling us that you will find the great grand creatures no matter how big they are. You fuel the graveyard with the dead parts that weren't useful for evolution. That's how evolution works. You go through them and find the strongest ones. You grow them, give them 7 extra +1 counters, and then they all start to fight. That is Vorinclex's plan. Make big creatures, let them fight. That's it. And that's it for the video as well. I want to thank you for watching. Let me know what your favorite one is of the 5 and how you feel like it plays into their lore. Thank you.